Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Green, SVP of Strategy at Broadsign, and I'm here today to talk to you guys about data, and audience data in particular, but I've only got 12 minutes, so I'm going to have to skim over a huge chunk of things, and I apologize if I don't do some of them justice, or any of them justice, because I probably won't. I want to start by asking, have you ever felt like the internet was watching you? You had a talk with your spouse about getting a dog, and then all of a sudden, all you see is dog food ads everywhere. Now, some of that is confirmation bias, but some of it isn't. If you have a phone with apps on it or browse the web, then you are likely participating unwittingly or wittingly in something called the third-party data ecosystem. If you use an app that you didn't pay for, then it's going to send your phone's unique identifier called an IDFA to a company called a third-party data provider. And sometimes it sends it even when you're not using it. If you navigate to a website, similarly, a cookie generally gets dropped into your browser and also shared with those third-party data providers. Those companies then slot your ID into one or several of many hundreds of audience profiles that they manage. Profiles like dog owners, expectant parents, pickup truck enthusiasts, people who are about to be married, salad lovers, etc. Advertisers are then able to use that data to target you, even if you've never been to their site or interacted with their brand directly in any way. And if they're clever, they can even measure whether you went into a store or a store that sells their wares that's owned by another retailer after you've seen their ads. This is an enormous part of the online advertising ecosystem. It's the reason you think that the internet is following you, because it kind of is. In the free web and ad-supported app ecosystem, you are the product being sold. And just like a toy in an Amazon fulfillment center at Christmas, you're tagged and tracked and boxed up like a package running through the warehouse. And that can be a little bit freaky. I understand. But there's a few things you should know. Number one is that this data ecosystem never works quite as well as data companies or as alarmist presentations like this make it seem. It's a bit like you're at a crowded cocktail party and you want to get people to move to one side of the room. This tech lets you tilt the floor a little bit in your favor, say maybe 1 degree. Not everyone comes over to your side of the room, but a few do, and that's enough. Because of things like cookie loss and targeting inaccuracies and errors in the cadence of update and the inevitable dirt in the data caused by the fact that human beings are unpredictable, it never works perfectly. It never lets you tilt the floor 45 degrees in your direction, or at least very rarely. If it did, it would work so well that no other ad-supported media would exist, and they do. So it's not perfect, but it is concerning. We all love free ad-supported media and apps, and the idea of never seeing an irrelevant ad or buying an irrelevant impression is appealing to a lot of us. But there are downsides. There are side effects. What is the side effect of an entire generation of little boys growing up never having seen a Tampax ad? I don't know, but I can't imagine that it's going to be good for misogyny. And that's not to mention what happens when this tech is used for things other than getting people to switch which brand of toothpaste they use. When it's used by malicious state or non-state actors for purposes other than advertising, they can tilt public opinion in ways that it might not otherwise go. And that kind of brings me to my second point about why you shouldn't be too worried, is that all of this is changing. This entire third-party app ecosystem and ad ecosystem is changing right now. It started a few years ago when browsers like Firefox and Safari stopped supporting third-party ad cookies in their browsers. Then last year, Apple dealt a blow when they made the sharing of IDFAs, the phone's unique ID, opt-in for iOS 14 and greater. And Google joined the party by announcing that Chrome would no longer support third-party cookies either. This really is in the process of choking off a lot of the data that comes into that data ecosystem. But recently, Another announcement made by Google is perhaps even more significant. They announced that their ad platforms, including their ad exchange, would stop accepting all forms of personalized third-party tracking. And if these other changes cut off the data, this change cuts off the money. And so all of that is in turn driven by an even bigger fish that's off screen, which is this societal unease with this technology. This growing awareness that the Faustian bargain we all made for better ad targeting might not be worth it. And that unease is being expressed through legislation like the EU's GDPR or CPA in California and similar legislation from a host of other jurisdictions around the world. So all of it is in the process of being upended. But why should we care? We're a bunch of out-of-home companies. We don't make apps. We don't make websites. Why on earth is this important to us? Well, I can think of two important reasons. The first is because of the money. The programmatic digital ad market is roughly 7 times as large as all of digital out-of-home. And the portion of that that relies on third-party data is somewhere between a half and a fifth of that total. So this is a bigger pot of money than all of our market that's in the process of being reevaluated. It depends on this data ecosystem that's increasingly imperiled. And marketers of all stripes are scrambling to figure out what comes next. How do they evolve? The second reason that we should care about it is because we actually do use it. Odds are very good that you are either the user of or beneficiary of a planning tool or buying tool that makes use of this data to create out-of-home media plans. This is a screenshot from our owned and operated DSP called Campsite, which uses data derived from this third-party data ecosystem to build targeting profiles for screens around the world. In fact, our whole industry has been quietly pushing in this direction of audience targeting over the last 4 or 5 years in the hopes of grabbing some of that digital money because that's the way it was targeted. But as digital reevaluates the way they're targeting, we have this unique opportunity to cast out of home in a totally different light. Now, no one really knows what's going to happen here, right? That third-party data ecosystem, it's being challenged, but it's not going to change or die quietly. And right now, there are a number of consortiums that are pushing alternative measurement solutions. And maybe it'll work. Maybe they won't. We don't really know. But what we do know that is in the next 2 to 3 years, the entire ecosystem is going to be full of change. One thing that pretty much everyone agrees on is that first-party data, data owned by the advertiser, is going to become vastly more important in digital targeting. And so get ready for every brand you deal with wanting to have a deeper relationship with you, either signing up to their website or their newsletter, even more so than they already are. The second thing that most people agree on is that context is going to be extremely important, or at least vastly more important than it is today. And this is a really good thing for out-of-home, which is generally an inherently contextual medium. As media owners and publishers, you need to actively think about what contexts are most important to your inventory, most likely to make your inventory shine. Is it the fact that 1 out of 8 people in front of a particular screen is likely to be a coffee lover? Or is it the fact that it's raining and cold outside for everyone in front of that screen, and maybe a cup of coffee would warm them up? As advertisers, we need to start thinking about what scenarios might be the most conducive to selling our wares. Should we be targeting screens because they have a slightly higher percentage of auto buyers? Or should we buy ads where the traffic is terrible and everyone is sitting in their cars thinking, you know what, this jalopy's looking a bit worse for wear, maybe it's time to upgrade? And the answer to those questions are going to depend on the campaign, the situation, and the good news is that we don't have to choose, or at least we don't have to unilaterally choose right away, because that third-party data ecosystem is not disappearing overnight. It's just getting harder, and the data is becoming more scarce. And so it becomes more and more imperative on us to find alternative ways of targeting, not like a light switch, but like a gradual fade. And that brings me to our role as a tech provider. It's our responsibility to make all of this possible and scalable and easy. If out-of-home is a contextual medium, then that context has mostly been hidden and inaccessible to the buyer. It's impossible to buy on traffic and weather in many cases, and it's our job to change that. And we have to make it easy. It can't take 3 months of manual data juggling to pull these campaigns off. You have to be able to just click a couple of preferences and press play and make it go. The changes that we're seeing in the digital ecosystem can represent an unprecedented opportunity for out-of-home to cast itself in a way that gets us more money out of the ad ecosystem than we do today. It's ours for the taking if we can work together to grasp it. Thank you